Welcome to our Devos this week, where we have been talking about managing and dealing with people problems and getting past your people problems. If you've lived on this earth for anything longer than a day, there's a good chance, if you've interacted with somebody else, that there's an opportunity for conflict. If you have people that struggle with sin bumping into each other, you're going to have conflict. You're going to have it in your homes. You're going to have it in your workplaces. You're going to have it within your context of your friendships and your relationships. And it has to land on this place that you want to, as a person that is truly trying to follow Jesus, to look differently than the world looks. And there's some things that we could consider about that. And the first thing that you need to realize when it comes to really putting yourself out there as a strong person, let's talk about what a strong person looks like. Like, you consider strong people, like you have some strong people in your life right now. These are the people that you never want to upset, you never want to offend. These are the people that you don't want to watch football or baseball or hockey with because they scream at the TV, right? These are strong people. Oh, that person is strong. You don't want to get, you don't want to get into a political discussion with someone like this if you have a little bit of a different opinion. Like, I'm not talking about like you're a Democrat or Republican different. I'm talking about like if you have just a little bit of a difference in how you approach things. Like, if you are slightly different, they're going to let you know about it. Okay, those are strong. But what if we really examine true strength? And what if we really started to look at the heart of what strength is in the Bible? Really, what we're missing from this discussion is one word: meekness. Meekness. You don't know what meekness is because we don't talk about meekness. Meekness is a gentleness. And the Bible described Jesus as being weak. And the Bible actually talks about Jesus having this meekness about him that cannot and should not be confused with weakness. A lot of times that's what we do. We see somebody that's just like a pushover. They don't believe in anything and I'll just do whatever they say. You know me, I don't like to make any waves. Like, that might be considered weakness. But then there are people that are consciously looking to restrict their opinions, restrict how strong they are about a subject, restrict how they come across, not out of weakness, but in deference to meekness. Big difference, okay? So the lesson today is this: show strength through meekness. Show strength through meekness. Don't show strength by strength. When somebody comes out with something that you hear that is outlandish, and right now you only have to look left or right at times, or just go on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and you're going to see people that are saying something that are crazy. It's crazy what people say and what people put out there. And you see hypocrisy, and you see things that are nonsensical, and you see things you don't agree with. Instead of opening up your keyboard or opening up a discussion or a text message war on your family's text thread, okay? Instead of doing that, show how strong you are by what? By being meek. By stopping and asking yourself what you're about to bring into this situation. Is it going to bring value to the situation? Is it going to honor God in the situation? Is it going to show God's gentleness and kindness and patience in this situation? Or are you going to win the argument, okay? I'm not saying you can't win the argument, but what I'm saying is, what's the end result? James has a lot to say here about this subject. It's really interesting. This is quite a lengthy passage. But he said in James chapter 3, verses 13 and 16 through 16, "Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let him show his works in meekness of wisdom." By his good conduct and meekness of wisdom. Now, he makes a contrast here of what the opposite is of meekness and wisdom in this situation. He says, "But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but it is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice." Now, I want to say this. I don't think that just because you want to be right, or just because you want to have a dialogue that ends up with you proving something right, or being super, super strong about vocalizing your view on the truth, I don't think that you necessarily struggle with bitter jealousy, selfish ambition, and want to boast. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, all of those people that struggle with bitter jealousy, selfish ambition, boastful, falsehoods, all of those people do tend to want to argue to be right, okay? So there's a tendency there that this becomes an issue of the heart. So I really want to ask you, when you start to fight with your family, when you start to argue with your spouse, when you start to have a disagreement with someone that doesn't look and act like you do with regard to the political climate we're living in or when it comes to the way we handle conflict, okay? What's your end game there? Like, what's really going on in your heart? You might say, well, I love them and I need them to know, I need them to be convinced of these things. Do you though? I mean, really, is this love pursuing out of your heart, or are you genuinely worried that you're going to come across looking like you're weaker or you don't know what's going on? I mean, I really need you to examine your heart here, because this is a heart thing. Because James offers a challenge. And the challenge, he says, is that you, by your good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. Now, Jesus was meek. He was. The people that Jesus fought with were religious people. The people that Jesus confronted were religious people. Did Jesus address sin? Yes. But the people that Jesus caught in sin, he dealt with gently, very gently. The woman taken in adultery in John 8, he has a conversation with her and he says, I'm not going to condemn you, but stop sinning. The woman at the well in John chapter 4, we see that this woman is sleeping with somebody who's not her husband, and she's been married 5 times. And Jesus calls her out on that, but he has a spiritual conversation with her in respect first. Zacchaeus, when Zacchaeus comes down from the tree and wants to know, he sneaks up the tree, I should say, to see Jesus. And then he comes down and Jesus says, I want to stay with you. And then Jesus makes the challenge to Zacchaeus to do better. But it's in gentleness. It's in meekness. Could Jesus have said, you shouldn't be sleeping with this man. You shouldn't be committing adultery. You shouldn't be ripping people off their taxes. He could have said that. He could have ripped right into them. But you know what he does? He's gentle. Why? Because it's in wisdom and goodness that he works through these conversations. Lately, I'm overwhelmingly obsessed about the character of Jesus and how he handles these situations versus the way most Christians handle these situations. And it's puzzling to me and puzzling in my own life when I say, well, why did you handle this differently than, why were you harder about stuff like this than Jesus is? Why are you different in conflict than he is? So my encouragement to you is think about the works of meekness and wisdom. Think about how you can come across in a way that shows that you have strength, but your strength is because you've reserved it instead of pouring it out onto somebody that you disagree with.